on. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm JonJonTheWise, and I'm joined here with some awesome content creators. And today we have joined forces for a wonderful cause that I will get into momentarily. Autism Home Base is the organization, the charitable organization that we are working with today. And today we're going to be talking about cyberpunk settings. Now, this is going to be great for you game masters and even players, but for you game masters that are looking to craft the right cyberpunk setting, I have some experienced game masters here and players that are going to help you with that, and we're going to be talking about that. So first down the list, Binary Dragon from the No Latency crew. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Binary Dragon on Twitter. You can find me there. I make a podcast called No Latency with 4 amazing players who, without it, it would just be me talking to myself, which they very friendly do not do to me. And I also stream on Twitch some video games and stuff. Cyberpunk's, pretty good.
Yeah, it is. I agree. Thank you so much for joining us, Binary Dragon. Do you like going by that, by the way? That's what I put as your graphic.
Most you can just call me Binary. That's what most people call me on the internet.
Yeah. Binary, dude. Big bi. No, that's not what I'm going to do.
Let's not use that. That sounds like the opposite of yes.
And next we have Taylor from the Consave. Taylor, how are you?
Yes, I am great. Taylor. Potato everywhere. Just go to the Consave. That's the fun stuff. We do on a break from Cyberpunk currently, but you can go watch all of it because it's out there in the ether. Also do a bunch of stuff over on High Shelf Gaming, and those are kind of my two homes. So you can find us Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all those things.
Yeah, wonderful tabletop RPG content. They play live games, they do live chats, they do all kinds of fun stuff. If you're into tabletop RPGs, that's the place to go, as well as High Shelf Gaming. Love that place.
Yes.
And next, last but not least, all the way from across the seas, from Adelaide, Chris from Baby Beard Media. Chris, introduce yourself.
Howdy. I'm Chris, Bonding Chris on Twitter. I play role-playing games as part of a tabletop role-playing game podcast called Roll to Cast. We also, as Baby Beard Media, have a bunch of Let's Plays that we have on YouTube. So if you like Let's Plays, if you like role-playing games, check us out, Baby Beard Media and Roll to Cast.
Highly recommend it. They go through pretty much all the classics. You got Fallout, you have Dragon Age, you have that Raptor
Vampire
Boyfriend.
the Masquerade.
Raptor
Boyfriend.
Raptor Boyfriend game. That's.
Oh my God, that was so fun.
Is that like a dating sim game?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's great. It's a lot of fun.
It's so good.
That's awesome. All right. Well, we'll get straight into it. Let me just talk about our organization. You guys can see their stuff on screen. The donation link will be in the description below. It's a Trillify link. It is collecting all the information. We highly recommend you guys to go throw a couple bucks their way, because Autism Home Base was created by families for families. Starting out as a handful of families, Autism Home Base has grown to serve almost 200 members across multiple municipalities and regions in Ontario. One of their initiatives is to provide their members with activities and programs. One such program is the Dungeons & Dragons group, which proved to be a creative outlet for the members. For the past 2 years, Autism Home Base has worked together with Phantasm Convention in Peterborough, I believe it's what it's pronounced. I'm not that smart.
It's Peterborough.
Peterborough, right? To bring tabletop RPG players an amazing weekend of adventure, workshops, and prizes. Thanks to the Critical Hit Gaming Lounge, this year's fundraising event will be held over 2 weekends. October 8th and 9th will be the Beginner's Night to introduce new players to the world of D&D and prepare them for their first adventures and to join in the fun of Phantasm. That does sound fun. Phantasm?
Yeah, that sounds cool.
It's a good name. On October 16th and 17th, Autism Home Base will be running both online and donate to play events during the Phantasm Convention. They'll be having an online show October 16th and 17th. There will be grand prizes, guest speakers, and more. throughout the entire weekend. By attending these events or donating to Autism Homebase, you are not only supporting an organization and its programs, you're also making an impact in the day-to-day lives of families just like yours. Families who desire a space they can belong, where their differences are celebrated and understood. I think we can all relate with something like that. Your support creates more opportunities for families to lead rich, active lives in a supportive community, opportunities that inspire our members to stay engaged in their community and discover new interests that they have not had the chance to experience before. You are the driving force that helps our families build lifelong friendships and support. All right? So that's it. That's Autism Homebase. If you guys want to know if it's a cause worthy of your dollars, euros, or whatever you got going on, I believe they are. Any kind of organization that helps people connect, especially with tabletop RPGs, because that's what we love, that's what we do, we gotta love and support them. So please, I implore you throughout the entire show, if you have a chance, go to that link in the description below, or if this is being broadcast live in the chat, I'm sure it's going to be blasted in the chat as well. Please go and donate to the good folks at Autism Homebase. All right, so let's get straight to it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I love everything that all of you guys do. And I've always wanted to connect all of us together. We were talking off air that I don't think any of you guys ever worked together. Have you?
No.
No.
Boom.
It's exciting.
Bucket list. So
Tiny clap.
yeah, that's good. I wanted to talk about some Cyberpunk settings. Honestly, this is like kind of a selfish thing too, because I always like to hear what other people have to say when it comes to this stuff. Because I'm a game master, I still run games, and I run out of ideas all the time. So I would love to hear your guys' take. So the first Cyberpunk setting, I mean, we have to do the nightclub, right? It has to be the nightclub. The Cyberpunk nightclub is what Cyberpunk is known for. And we're going to be doing this in 3 different subcategories. The first one is everyday Cyberpunk. So, Binary, why don't you tell me what you think is something that you would expect a Cyberpunk nightclub to have within it?
Oh, do you mean a nightclub? Sorry, I can't not laugh because my whole campaign is set around a bar/nightclub.
I mean, how many? Afterlife. Afterlife is one of the best stories. I don't know if you guys.
Oh, they've got a great story.
Yeah, how it used to be a morgue and now it's a nightclub.
Yeah, brilliant.
Have you guys ever seen anything like that before, like in the wild? That it used to be this and now it's that?
Well, that's what I based the bar on originally. Was there's a bar in LA called No Vacancy, and it's just like you go to this little shop, and at the back there's a secret door, and you go down this stairway, and there's a bar downstairs, and it's really cool. And obviously, you know, everyone knows there's a bar down there, but it's the entrance is just that extra mwah, that I just thought was, oh, that's magic. And then I made like a pun about it. I suppose every location should have a hook. You know, you've got the morgue, you've got the secret entrance, you've got the something. There's got to be a reason for people to be there. It can't just be a bar. Not because that's a bad setting, but because we want to give our players more.
Yeah,
you know what I
agree.
mean?
And if you guys have anything to say, chime in at any time. This isn't.
Oh yeah, completely.
Yeah, it's free, baby. Be free, be loving.
And I think, you know, you've got to have someone that they expect to be in there, and you've got someone that they don't expect to be in there. And those 2 things, that little triangle of stuff, should be enough base for you to build anything on top of it. Like for the bar that when we first started. In the original like one shot that started it all, we had a bar person who was going to be a continuing part of their adventure, and then what was revealed is an AI which was secretly hiding underneath the bar and being the actual fixer, the mysterious domino. And those things they didn't expect. They knew they were meeting in a bar because I thought, why not grab a D&D trope? But they didn't know that the bar they were standing in was part of the story yet.
Yeah, that they've done that in Fallout New Vegas, right? The great twist at the end is the thing you were after the entire time was like a big giant AI, right?
Yep.
And that was the boss, everybody's boss from the beginning. Yeah,
from the very beginning.
I like that. That's very Cyberpunk.
But I pulled that out of the front, right at the front. Like, there's an AI here, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what makes it Cyberpunk too, right? Is that whole AI thing.
Like this is where we're starting, everyone.
Yeah.
It's gonna get worse. Like that's what you want. You don't want to start small. Start big enough that they can be on their toes a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Set the tone
Grab 'em
early
in.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
There's a bar in Adelaide, or there was, called Heaven, which is a decommissioned church.
Oh,
I'm
brilliant.
always such a big fan. It's now a music center, actually. Now they've turned it into a performing arts center. But it used to be a club. And so it was this big, beautiful church with stained glass windows that just club
Yeah.
music every Saturday and Friday. And it was awesome. And I think that's a really important thing in terms of setting, is you can articulate the if the bar or club is where you want your players to hang, you can set the tone for them as in terms of what their morality is or what their ideology is. You know, if in Cyberpunk it's lots of anti-authoritarianism. So like, is it a business center that was taken over by a bunch of punks that have like graffitied everything and torn it to shreds, and now it's a club that they've like made their turf? Or is it a armory that suddenly became like a bar, and instead of like guns everywhere, I mean, it's Cyberpunk, you still need guns,
Yeah.
but instead of guns everywhere, they're now like handing out food. As a kind of like soupy kitchen kind of bar sort of combo, so that you can set the morality of what you are like. Hey, you're the good guys in this story. Here's what the morality going forward you should probably be aspiring to.
I really like that. Taylor, you have anything to add?
Yeah, so there is in New Braunfels, Texas, there's a bar restaurant that's like a post office, or was an old post office. And so, you know, you go in and there's like the wall of all the old like lockers and all the things. And when you're talking about army, I was like, how cool, because it even still has the loading docks and everything for the mail trucks. Like that could so easily be a bar, and then the post office spot is literally an arms dealer, or it's like your fixer's headquarters secret through the like cubbies. Like you could,
Totally.
you know, really play with those, because I don't know, I very much like in the cyberpunk world, a lot of just shit has happened. You got to make the best of what you got. You can't build a brand new bar. Let's just make the best of this post office,
You can
this
make a
church.
real- Sorry to interrupt. You
No,
can make
that's
a real fun puzzle out of those deposit boxes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
And having to get certain keys for each one to open it.
Yeah, my mind
yes,
is
so many options.
my mind is racing from what you just said. Like the idea that like let's say it's a booster gang that runs it, and they go, yeah, one of my boys just stole a shipment truck and he'll be here soon. We'll put him in the loading dock, everyone line up, and then as soon as they open the trailer, it's like all these goods, and there's like a night market going on in this nightclub now.
And then too, thinking just of the actual one in New Braunfels, it's like ritzy. It's really nice, really fancy. The front end could be very high end, like very much like the seedy underbellies keeping it running back here, while these big, like deep pocketed guys are just living their life up front.
Yeah,
So
I like that. I like that. Yeah, one of the nightclubs I ran in my game was a nightclub that was in a combat zone, and it's invite only, and it's where corporates, cops, and other people go to be corrupt and do shady deals and have slaves and whatever, pit fighting. It's all the bad stuff you can't do in a normal city. It's in this nightclub, and of course, all my players shot up the whole place, and it was a big bang. So let's talk about NPCs that you guys definitely think should be there. I'll start with the bouncer. I mean, the bouncer is the first person that your players will probably interact with. And, you know, you can go the typical, like, big buff, cybered out, almost cyber psycho guy. Or it can be an automated, like, AI system or something like that there is no person. It's just a bunch of turrets and lasers that from the walls that read you and then talk to you, and then that's how they let you in or out of the building.
Huh.
Yeah. So what else you guys got?
I really like the unassuming, lightweight character backed up by AI. It's that a kind of, oh, you're going to try that? Okay, well, here's my actual muscle is tech. Gives it that sense of the tech being the assistant to the person, and kind of sets that technology at the hands of people. That's what makes it dangerous. This lithe, smart talking, wiry young person who doesn't look like a fight at all suddenly is quite a worry, actually, as they've got stacks of guns just behind them with lasers and turrets and stuff. Yeah,
they're harnessing technology for their status and their power.
Yeah,
that's what Cyberpunk
which is a nice
is.
theme. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
And I love the idea of creating a place where it's like, you don't want to fuck with me, but you do want to work with me. Sorry, are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Cyberpunk, baby.
but the idea of like, I love what you were just saying, Chris, about the AI backing up the person who's just like, welcome to this space. Put your gun away.
Yeah.
Want a drink. Just let's talk shop rather than shoot stuff. This is not where the fight is. It is elsewhere.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah, I like that. I love the fixer sitting at the corner table by themselves, smoking, the only person smoking inside because no one says anything to them. And then there's like a bunch of goons like all over the place watching people approach, making sure nobody's doing anything crazy. I love that idea too. Taylor, what do you got?
Yes. Oh, I mean, it's a nightclub. You can easily put in some hotshot rocker boys. You could put in some groupies that easily can cause chaos, especially if the rocker boy decides chaos wants to be started. I think, because we were talking about earlier, a reason to be there, not just be like this place. I mean, sometimes your players will literally just be like, we need a drink. And you're like, okay, what do I do? And I think just like those fun little side characters can make a place all of a sudden meaningful, even if it wasn't built to have an AI in it. And so, you can think of those things like the rocker boy has beef with the guy that runs the place. He's not getting paid, and he literally starts a riot, and your people are now stuck in the middle of it. You can put these little,
it has nothing to do with your crew. You just happen to be there.
And then that gives a living, breathing thing. Because I feel like so many times, I especially am like, okay, I got to get to this point, that I don't do any just like real life stuff. I'm just very much what the players need to do, and so those are always. Nightclubs are unexpected. They're weird. They're crazy. You get anyone walks in there and has something to say.
I also like the idea of putting someone there that doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Like you're in a gritty, gross, dirty nightclub. There's, some serious grime going on and people doing like backroom cyber tech on someone's arm while they drink a whiskey. And then there's the cleanest corpo you've ever seen standing, holding a folder against their chest. I mean,
yeah, I love
come
that.
on.
I love
come
that,
on, player.
That
come on.
Juxtaposition of, I love that idea that like a group of nomads that work with these corporates are like dirty. They're in their fatigues, dirty clothes, but the corporates need them to get their shipments across. So they get to sit at that table and eat lobster and drink like everybody else, but they don't look like everybody else. That's a story in itself.
And see if your players bite.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, maybe push them.
Yeah. I think as well, it's such a universal thing is like nightclubs and stuff, or clubs and bars. There's such a universality to them, a commonness of them, that you can set tone so quickly with them. You can set everyday men and women, everyday people, just what they're drinking, what they're eating, how they're talking, listening into conversations. So in terms of that kind of like slow or careful world building, it's a great place because it gives you the insight into everyday people.
Yeah, it's a place of business, right? It's not just it can be fun, and then on the turn of a dime, it's now a combat situation or a business venture that you're going to go through.
Yeah.
And if you've got a long-running campaign, it can be a way for you to bring an old character back that they liked, but you didn't have a hook for, but to show them the other side of them. If they met them in a business situation, now you're seeing them in their relaxing time. And maybe in the store, they were very like tough and ready, but in the bars, they get drunk and they're giving and selling stuff, giving drinks away or something and being really generous. And you can take advantage of that to like push the story forward a bit.
And they've got friends, which is weird because you didn't think that two-dimensional character that the players really liked actually has a lived experience particularly if you want to steer them away from like just killing everything, as players sometimes want to do. Bringing in an old character and having them be friends with just a bunch of other people gives them a sense of, oh, we're actually, when you kill a character in the game, you're taking a life, and that can weigh heavy sometimes if you want to go down that route.
Yeah, consequences, right? Cyberpunk's all about that. It's like, I mean, we know the trope of the tavern in like D&D. It's a place where adventurers go, they rest, they learn about quests and rumors. The nightclub is, I feel like, that to an exponential power, because it's also a place of, you know, meeting people, making contacts, hanging out, having a good time, and just experiencing life.
And what can you do differently in a big noisy nightclub as a cyberpunk character that you can't do in real life? Cybertech stuff.
Yeah.
Like you could encourage maybe a player or hopefully they would come up with this idea on their own of like using their audio implants to isolate a conversation across the room, and then they get to roll for that, and you can really dig into the rules a little bit and use this setting to create obstacles. Oh, they're across the room, but you can't hear their conversation because it's really loud in here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still waiting
in your ear.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still waiting for one of my players to poison somebody at a nightclub. They haven't done it. No one's ever thought about it. And I'm like, dude, just put something in his drink and it's over.
Right.
We had a nightclub in season 1 of Roll to Cast for our Cyberpunk 2020 game. And one of the big things that was part of it was that there were isolated rooms where you could have meetings that were soundproofed so that you wouldn't hear the club music. So you stepped into the club, big loud music, and then you stepped into these isolated rooms. But what it drove home for us as players was, this was in corpo territory, we were like, oh, shoot, the corporates are so well versed in this kind of underhanded, shady nonsense where they just keep backstabbing each other, that it's built into the venue.
Yeah.
Nice.
You know, it's these sort of like settings reflecting the setting of your game. And it was just such a lovely detail.
I love
I
that.
mean, in this dark future kind of world too, like the business isn't done sitting at a desk ever. I mean, it's not now, let's be honest. It's like you could get so much more if you just go have a drink with someone than meeting at their desk. So some heavy hitters are just in the bar, slumming it with the rest of us.
Yeah, there's jobs and then there's business, right? I can give you a job over the phone and say, go do this or that. But if we want to do business and like plot against something or some organization, we got to meet, have champagne, and sit on silk sheets or something like that, you know, if we're in the corporate zone. I love that idea. That's great. All right, so nightclubs, that's it. I think we covered a lot of there's stuff that we've missed, but that is the sense of what a nightclub should be. You're going to be using it in all your games. My players go to a nightclub every 3rd, 4th session somehow. It just happens that they go to a nightclub or something. Let's talk about something that I don't hear most people talking about, and that is Nomad Wastelands or camps. Out in the Badlands, the Mad Max territory. This is something that I see far less in most campaigns, because when people like Cyberpunk, they want to explore the nightclubs, they want to explore the streets, the city vibe of what it's like to be in Night City or in Cyberpunk. And you could do that for years and years and sessions without ever walking outside of the city limits. But I think there's something special about walking out of the city and going to a place where nomads survive. This is the city safe illusion of police and corporations. That's all an illusion to them. They're like, the world already ended, and that's why we're here where we are now, and everything else is bullshit. So let's, Chris, why don't you tell me what you think Nomad Wasteland is like?
So I draw inspiration immediately from like media that I consume a lot, video games. So Borderlands, I think the game is called.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. I haven't gamed in a long time, clearly. But that sort of wastelandy sort of stuff, where you see cars stacked on top of each other, creating little huts, creating buildings made out of whatever you can get your hands on, converted cars into buildings, so on and so forth. But I think as well, a great thing in those sort of nomad camps is a sense of why that space. Yeah, if they're going to move, if they're constantly moving, if they're constantly in the great, drive home the temporary nature of the space. So every building has wheels under it, and it's ready to go at like the drop of a hat. And you know that this place might just disappear in a night, and these people will go, and this town that they've set up will travel to another location, which is an incredible idea. But if it is permanent, why this location? Is it because the hill has a water deposit, or is it giving shade, or is it sort of an oasis-y vibe, or is there a resource that's close by that's being used or taken advantage of, or does it have a history to it? All of those things are kind of told in the tiny details in those sorts of spaces. I like seeing the remnants of stuff.
I love that.
In space.
Yeah.
In those spaces. Yeah.
Taylor?
I always think about, because you talk about being somewhere where there's a water deposit. Nomads move. They have to carry water. They have to be able to collect water. And that's the first place that an enemy can destroy those poor nomads. And so I always think, like, because I was kind of the same way. I was like, okay, I've already done a campaign that's like in the city. I want to do something else out. Like, what does the Midwest look like right now? Like, what, just trying to think of other things. And that was one of my thought about it. I was like, oh God, water is probably important. And if they're smart, wherever that water is held is very fortified, very protected, especially if they have any enemies nearby. And so I think just that. And then you also don't think as much of like food. Do they have any sort of animals? Do they have literal like haulers full of animals with them? Do they have a way to create their own things on the go? You got to think of, these people live off this. They can't run down to the like Combini down the road and grab like some crappy burrito.
Yep, they're self-sustained.
Like how can they sustain themselves in this wasteland with maybe no resources to start? How did they get to that point to be able to have this? And that can put a lot of history into this nomad pack if you're making your own and everything too.
Yeah.
They tough.
They tough.
They tough.
And on the flip side, because I actually had my players go to the Badlands quite early in the campaign. They went out to the Wastelands to chase after someone they were looking for, and I put them with the people who were thriving in the Badlands, like the big kahuna. I created this thing called the train that goes on this big circular track and can't stop. And it just barrels its way through the wasteland, is constantly on the move, and they make vehicles and they jump off the kite and they sell all this scrap and make a lot of money. And so they're the kingpins. They're the big boys. It didn't stop my players royally for a piss
derailing the train.
They didn't derail the train, but they really pissed them off. They cannot go back. It's a whole place I've created, and they get to go once. But that's the exciting thing. Can you create that kind of, not only the people who are struggling but still getting by, but the people who are thriving? Tempt your players with that. See if they want to bite.
Yeah,
we had a similar. Sorry, John.
No, I was just saying I like it.
We had a similar. I like it.
I like it.
Thumbs up.
Great. We had a similar experience in one of our seasons for Autocast. Was the Cyberpunk Red version. Ellen, one of our players, came from a circus background, which she is a player. We're all trained actors, so we incorporate that a tiny bit.
Yeah, we are too.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
We had her as a circus character, so the nomads were circus themed. So they were traveling entertainers, and having that hook as to why they're traveling, I think, gives a real sense of what their priorities and areas of focus will be. So instead of just a big car that's leading the pack, it's a big top car. It's the we have the ringleader car, and it's like, wow,
yeah.
And it's like that theme, that color, all of those borrowing from like 1920s Dust Bowl era, your Carnivale sort of stylings. with giving that a cyberpunk twist, oof, loving it.
Yeah.
I love that. From the first time I even knew what Cyberpunk was, and I saw the Nomads, I was like, I want to be a circus performer like Nomad. I've still never played a Cyberpunk Red game. I've only GM'd one. So
I'm gonna change
John.
Don't worry. I have stuff in the works.
I've played like a one shot, but I didn't get to do a circus performer.
Yeah.
So I love that someone's out there doing it because I think that's so awesome.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's a great idea. I love that whole idea where she came from a circus, because then it makes you think like, oh, what's a circus like in Cyberpunk? You know what I mean? With the technology and AI and nano machines, is it still like some things never change? You know, I'm sure that there's that element, but then there's
And
the
who
other
gets
thing.
fired out of a particle accelerator?
Yeah,
cannon?
exactly. We've had a few accidents, but should be good now.
Yeah, juggling chainsaws is less of a threat when you can get a cyber arm.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Or,
It's
you
a
know,
lower bar
Juggling
of entry.
cyber arms that are juggling cyber chainsaws. That's interesting.
a four-armed bearded woman juggling chainsaws. I love that idea.
There's my character right
That's
there.
great.
We wrote
And
it.
the middle beard is an arm, and it is also juggling.
There,
Yeah,
see,
that's
A little
the
mini
finale.
chainsaw.
Yeah, just a
style
chainsaw.
over substance. I love that. Yeah, in my newest setting, ever since I played Cyberpunk 2020 back in the day, that was all Night City all day. Then even when Cyberpunk
day?
Red, all day,
Sorry.
all Night City all day. And then even later on, when I played Cyberpunk Red, I was still in Night City, and I decided, you know what, I'm getting as far away from Night City as I can. I went to Texas, not too far.
Again.
Went to Texas, and then I found this little spot. I call it the Devil's Triangle. It's Houston, Austin, and San Antonio. That's the triangle, right?
Mhm.
I think that's the triangle.
Yeah, it's really
sorry, no, Dallas,
but yeah.
Dallas, Houston, Austin, I think is what it is. That's the triangle.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, I digress. The Nomad camp is smack dab in the middle, and they are a self-sustaining group. They started from nothing. They actually were corporates. They lived in a corporate zone, but since Cyberpunk Red comes after like a big collapse that happened, all the corporations, but a very few handful, pretty much went belly up. And these people were left without any corporate security. Their corporate zone was wide open. So their corporations were like, hey, you don't work for us. We don't even exist. We're out of here. And now these families had to fend for themselves. And after being, murdered and persecuted and killed by all the other factions around them, they finally decided, you know what? Why don't we just pick up our stuff, leave, and make our own community? And then that's what they did. They made a community. They started from scratch. And then now, if it wasn't for them, those local cities that I talked about wouldn't be able to get the stuff that they need to. They are the ones providing shipments and trucks and safe passage around the Devil's Triangle, as I call it. And they go around helping people with those shipments. So they're a huge player in that triangle area.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Thanks.
I like that. Yeah, that's
I like it. I like
I like having the real world justification as well. Also learning about America. I didn't know all three of those cities were in Texas.
Yep,
There you
that's
go.
right. There you go.
Yeah.
As an ignorant Australian.
Hey,
I live here, and I was like, yes, of course, that's what's on the map.
Checks
I
out.
literally live an hour away from Austin, and I do not know what the triangle is
Yeah,
he's talking
shoot.
about. I live in the middle of it.
Okay, well, that's
So it's
reassuring.
fine. It's fine.
Yeah, that's funny.
No,
Yeah,
because some of the triangles include El Paso,
Yeah.
all the big cities.
Texas
you can,
is gigantic. Texas is like a gigantic place. You could drive. I think you could be driving for 2 days and still be in Texas, like straight, right from
Yep.
corner
Absolutely.
to corner.
Yeah.
from where
That's
I live
nuts.
right now, it would take me over 16 hours to get west out of Texas, probably.
Jesus.
Yeah, but what if you
Yes.
souped up your vehicle
Oh,
But
that's
went in a
it-
straight
Like
line?
a nomad.
Yeah.
That's
Get
good.
back
Love
on
it.
topic.
I love
And
it.
I'll just
Steer us back onto topic. I love it. So let's talk about before we leave the Wasteland, let's talk about what kind of stuff our players will get into. What are like some easy plot hooks for you guys that you think would work out? I mean, the nightclub is so easy. The fixer.
Steal from Fallout.
Steal from Fallout is a good idea.
Water
I was like
chip.
Fallout and
Aye.
Borderlands.
Water.
No, original Fallout 1, the old game.
water chip.
Yeah, the water chip. Just throw it out there, and they'll be like, "What, from
Oh.
Fallout?" And you go, "Yeah, it's going to be brilliant.
Yes,
Go and do it."
from Fallout.
Yeah.
It started an
Don't even-
entire series game. You should play this plot
It'll
hook.
be super fun. Like pull from stuff like that. If you know, if there's a mission in Fallout that you loved, take it, make it your own, twist it around a little bit, sit it into your world, and see if it makes it better. Because it might. It was a really well made game. So pull from good stories that you like from Cyberpunk. I mean, Mad Max is like a massive pull for this. There's a race, and you've got to win.
Yeah.
To get the resources you need to get back and solve the big bad.
Yeah, the resource is a big thing in the Wastelands, right? Like stuff that we take for granted in a city is stuff that they fight and die for in the Nomad Wastelands, right?
Yeah.
I like
you
that.
You have the two major themes, I'd say, in kind of wastelandy sort of spaces are resources and time. And those two things are constantly at odds with each other. You do not have enough time, and you need to get resources, and that's it. Those are the big two. I mean, it's not to be like, and that's all of the stories that you can tell, but those are the big two that are going to hook something for you. Water Chip, you've got a limited amount of time. Mad Max, you need to get from one place to another in this time, otherwise things go bad. Messages need to be conveyed. You need to get food from one group to another, otherwise people will starve. You need to bring food back to people, otherwise people will starve. It's such a bare bones, like, in contrast to Night City, where it's always going to be, well, we've got all these options, we've got this luxury, and we've got this opulence. You've got what at the heart of it do people need? What are they driven by? And it's resources and time.
Yeah.
And the Wastelands too, it's so easy, or I guess not easy. It's something I feel like you can really play off of and push with your characters, with any interactions. In Night City, it's very easy to be a lone wolf me on my own against everyone. You can't do that in the Wastelands. Like, look at Mad Max. He didn't even do shit on his own for himself.
He needed help.
Like,
he
needed help, even though he is Mad Max.
Yeah.
So, you can really play off of that. Like, we have a school full of children. Help.
Yeah.
It's like,
okay, what do you need? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's not just you, it's an entire community 9 times out of 10. And so that gives a whole different type of play. I feel like, of where in other tabletop games, D&D, it's always about your party and your heroes and you're doing this. Cyberpunk's always kind of been that opposite, more nitty gritty. What is the gray area? But this, you can kind of push it a little bit more back into, like, you got to think about what you're doing for everyone, the consequences of your actions. And yeah, that could be, our truck broke down and now we have no way to get to Dallas to get food anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, in some ways the Wasteland is worse than a combat zone, because even combat cab will go and pick you up in a combat zone. But if you're in the Wastelands, combat cab is like, I don't know, this is kind of out of our range, we're not really there. And I always make sure to drive home to my players that the open roads are treacherous. That there's no one that's going to save you, and if you die, no one will remember you. You'll be gone like dust in the wind. And that's something that, when my players are like in this Devil's Triangle thing that I'm doing, if they want to go to Dallas to Houston, they know that they're going to be on the open road for a really long time. And they've already experienced roadside bombs, ambushes. They've even found like a tipped over truck that they opened up and found some good loot. And they never know what's going to happen. So that adds like another element of survival in Cyberpunk.
Even simple stuff. I mean, I lived in, this is a funny story, particularly for an international audience. I've hit a kangaroo twice driving. Wildlife is dangerous.
Yeah.
And they're big, by the by.
Oh, they're huge.
Yeah, they're 6-7 foot, big, muscly things.
Jacked.
A partner of mine flipped her car because she hit a wombat. It rolled 7 or 8 times.
What? Wombats are big. They're thick, small.
They're like bricks that you're going to hit on the road. Except
it's like pigs
living.
Here. Those wild hogs.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But even just like as traveling, you go, all right, make an awareness check. Make a see if you can see what's on the road. Make a drive check or something. Uh-oh, shoot, here we go.
Yeah.
and things kick off. But it's unpredictable. It's wild. It's dangerous.
Yeah, the wild
Mhm.
animal aspect is a good thing because they even in Cyberpunk 2020 they kind of said like wildlife is like non-existent, but then they hinted in red that Biotechnica doing Dino DNA, Jurassic Park style shit, they brought back
Yeah.
some animals. So I love the idea of a moose or meese, and I'll fight you.
Meeses.
I'll fight you on that. All right,
Mooses.
meese. Okay, the plural of goose
Meeses.
is the plural
Geese.
geese.
And
Gooses.
geese. It is
Many
gooses.
The gooses.
Geezers.
Geezers.
But anyway, the idea that you can put a big moose in the middle of the road is I love that
Yeah.
idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then
And
that's
also just there's a plot hook right there.
Yeah,
exactly.
Where did it come from?
you don't need anything else.
Yeah.
No.
And it
Turn
could
a
be
corner
some-
and there's a moose. That's fantastic.
It could be some abomination of a genetic mutated animal.
Oh, it's a
That's
moose.
Or
like-
it
there.
could be
What?
beautiful.
It's
It
It
was
could
just
be
like-
like designer animal for a corporation, and then
Oh my
there's
God,
like
that,
Pretty,
golden
like
horns.
LED.
Yeah.
yeah.
Steal
Maybe
from
some-
us in Australia. Take a kangaroo, mates.
Yeah, that's
you love
it.
it.
There's a kangaroo. In
What's one
Texas?
doing in Dallas, Texas?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, why the hell is there a
Just
kangaroo
outside.
here? That's brilliant. I love it.
Oh,
Yep.
that's great. I love that idea. Oh man, I'm totally gonna use that.
Random
There's a
animal
pouch.
appears before you. Here we
Cyberware?
go.
Watch
Yeah.
out! There's a
Oh,
there's-
cyber kangaroo?
Spyware pouch. It's got a bunch of gear in its front pouch.
Oh
little
my
cyber
God.
deck.
Or it turns out to
Little
just be a
net runner.
shop.
oh,
and
it's
Yeah.
a shop.
talk.
Yeah, it's a shop. It's a traveling kangaroo. Come on, you never seen that before?
There you go. It's a tech.
And that's the
kangaroo.
opening line. I'm a traveling kangaroo. You never seen it before?
Oh man, I love that. All right, the wastelands. We've given you kangaroos. Let's move on to talking about the corporate zone. The corporate zone is another staple part of Cyberpunk. It is where the haves have and the have-nots do not have. If you work for a corporation, the reason you signed on that dotted line and gave yourself away to that corporation is because you know there's a chance that you can live in this place called a corporate zone, where it's just like it used to be. Picket fence, cops watching the streets, no crime, trash pickup every Wednesday. All those things that are a giant luxury, the juxtaposition of living in a nomad wasteland. That's the other side of the spectrum. So, Taylor, tell me what you think corporate zones are to you.
So every time I hear the Beaverville description, I think of Saints Row 4. Is it 4? Is that the
Yeah.
latest one?
Yeah.
Where it like starts the simulation and they're like very much like leave it to Beaver. Like I think, style evolves and changes. My Beaverville is straight up Beaverville. Like you got this like 1950s Plymouth looking car, like all the like very, very themed things. But our just inside joke turned a legit thing is every Beaverville clubhouse is fully stocked, obviously. So, you got like a Subway, you got like real foods, like actual, because these people can have the money.
Yeah. If
and
anybody has it, these people have it. That's the whole
yeah,
idea.
there's no guerrilla farming. They're allowed to do that. Well, they've paid someone a shit ton of money to be allowed to do this. So it's like
Yeah, they're
you
literally
have real
farming
coffee.
Yeah.
There's gorillas serving you the coffee and
Absolutely.
actual lettuce on your sandwiches. It's very much what we just expect
Yeah.
is definitely there, plus then all the luxury. But I like to think of the Beaverville clubhouse of when you're pulling out on your way to work is like the stop with all of just the basic necessities, but it's real, which
love
is
that.
such a luxury to anyone else in the town,
Yeah. The idea that you can eat a real steak. It's like, oh man, where are we that there's a real steak on this plate? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, I love
What's the
that.
steak made out of?
Soylent Green or whatever it's called.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you got a real tomato though. That's there.
Yeah, you can't fake that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Binary, you have any ideas?
Yeah, I think the opulence of it is really important.
That's a big
But
word.
also-
yeah, opulence is like a big.
Yes.
Like it should be gauche. It should have gold and obnoxious things. But also in terms of like the places should be paced as corporations. Like corporations move at such an amazing pace right now, and so in the future, goodness gracious, they'd be even
With
faster.
the control they have now, the
I mean,
freedom they have.
I have a building that's a corporation in my campaign, and I randomize the rooms. So when they go back, like they could have moved offices, and they do it so often that when I literally roll a dice, and it's like, oh, they're actually upstairs, which means you have to get through this way. Last time you could have just gone up this way, and so there's that try and feed into it that things move quickly. Just because something is here today does not mean it will be here tomorrow, because it might be redeveloped, sent up the chain. That person may have done really well, and if you help them, they're not going to be there next time. You have helped them succeed. They are not at the bottom of the rung. They're not the person you meet, and now you have a new person to try and make a deal with.
And what does a new person do when they take control? They ruin everything that their predecessor did.
Exactly. So you've got a whole new angle to work with, and that can be really exciting. The pace of corporate zones, I think, is really important to bring to your players.
Yeah,
I love that. This constant shifting paradigm, very much in like a real-time space. I love that. That's great.
Yeah, that's totally corporate, right? The idea that they never stop. You're always moving. You're always trying to progress. Because if you stop, you're actually slowing down, and then you'll be left behind.
That's amazing. I love that.
I love that idea. I also love to drive home the point that this place is owned by corporations or a corporation. So they have their own rules. They have their own laws. And, they might have the regular stuff like don't shoot, don't kill, don't steal, and all that stuff. But then they have like other laws, like you can't drive this type of car in our streets, or you can't wear
HOA
this.
on crack,
at the highest
so
level. That's a
particular.
conflict of interest with our corporation. The way your grass is cut. So we got to make sure that you use this company that is monopolizing this entire corporate zone,
or even just what color you're allowed to wear.
Yeah. It's totally.
Did you not get the memo?
Yeah.
A memo went out. You need to be wearing blue today.
It's
why are you not
Labor Day. You gotta cut the white out of your closet now.
That's right. It's Labor Day. Why aren't you on work wearing white?
Yeah.
Irony of ironies.
Oof,
yeah.
Oof.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that totally reminds me of when I used to work for Disney. Don't worry. Don't sue me, Disney. This is a joke. But when I used to work for them, they had this like book of like what you can and can't do with like the characters. Like Jasmine cannot be behind Cinderella, and Snow White cannot be in front of. And if Mickey's on the screen, he's the biggest one. He's in the front. Like they have these kinds of arbitrary rules. So I wonder what that would look like in a cyberpunk world if they had that type of control over a population.
Yeah.
And I think a big one is Disney World. I read a stat somewhere, I don't know if you guys knew this, but you can fit 27 Disneylands, like the one from Anaheim, in Disney World. That's how big Disney World is. It's like if they have their own fire department, their own governing council. That's totally cyberpunk right there.
I mean, so does Universal in California. They're their own city.
Universal City. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I've been there. It's all right.
Disney World's in Florida?
Yeah. Orlando.
Nice.
You got it, dude. You're doing it.
I'm learning about America through corporatization and
American
characters. Yeah, that's right.
I know like 4 Australian cities. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's more than we have. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
You got Perth, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Sydney.
There it is. You said them all.
Yeah, there we are. I think for the corporate world, you need the comparison between what they have and don't have, which is the lack of need. So it's always nice going from a place where there's a need, like a combat zone or a squalor place in Night City, into the corporate world, because then the thing that they've been asking for like taking the water chip narrative from the Wastelands, you go into an opulent area and you get you go into a corporate zone and hi, thanks to Biotechnica, would you like some free bottled water? Thank you. And they're just handing it out on the streets. This thing that you've been grinding for ages is just, here you go.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Biotechnica. Driving home the absurdity or the like 3D chess or 5D chess of corporations, drinking that bottled water. You walk into a building and they tell you no, put the bottled water back down. That's a rival company.
Yeah.
You can step right in. But you just can't shop here drinking that bottled water, or you can't shop here wearing those clothes because they're manufactured by another corporation that we have our sister company doesn't tie well with, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Always driving that home, but also era. I really love, because you can do satirical stuff with 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, fashion, that sort of thing, what the people are wearing, what clothes they're wearing, how they hold themselves. Is it big 80s power suits? Is it kind of like thin? That sort of stuff.
Only shoulder pads.
The shoulder pads,
Huge
dude.
shoulder pads. I love it.
Cybertech shoulder pads.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You got those
turrets.
LED. There you go.
Miniature turrets. Or just really good lighting.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just
They're always in good
constant
light.
beautiful light.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have this gold
a
shiny hair.
Yeah.
A tanning bed that they can just like walk around with, so they're always getting the nice tan.
Oh man.
I think of American Psycho for this sort of space as well. The buildings. Do you want that kind of that 80s brutalism that you see in like oh shoot oh no, RoboCop. There we are. The kind of brutalist architecture in RoboCop, or do you go for that kind of 2000s-y hyperglass structure of like the Matrix and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
All of that's going to drive home a theme, so that when your players step into a building, step into a room, they're going to go, okay, this is the sort of tone that we're getting. These are people power for power's sake, or these are people who think power is control, or they think, power is the morally right thing to do, and it's kind of Reaganomics-y kind of the best people go to the top, and so that's the way it should be. This kind of Darwinian kind of pecking order, and you can drive that right down the minute they step in.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love the idea of like you going somewhere and then someone's like, you can't dress like that, like you said earlier, because it's a rival corporation. And then them saying like, in fact, I have to report you because we're on like an honor system in the corporate zone, like a social honor system, like they kind of do in China, allegedly. That kind of thing going on in the corporate zone as well.
Yeah,
That you can have
surveillance.
Yeah, and that you can have evolved just as quickly as we're talking about jobs. How quickly do trends in fashion change? It's like you're like, okay, I have to wear a blue 80s power suit. And then you walk in, they're like, oh no, sorry.
Yeah.
That's not uniform
very
anymore.
last
was literally
season. And by last season,
20 minutes ago.
Yeah. Last week.
Just like just drive your players absolutely insane.
And it can be a real like game system where you are just burning through their eddies, burning through their cash, just smashing through it and going, hey, this is what it takes to keep up
at the corporate zone.
Going back to what you said earlier, Chris, like, did you get the memo? You can have a memo for them at the beginning of every game where they have to pick an outfit.
Yeah, that's good.
Which is, a way of replacing rent if they don't have an apartment, as a way to keep them wanting and grabbing for deals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true, because it's going to be hard if you have a whole crew of corporate people. They're set up. How do you make their life difficult? How do you make them want to keep doing things? What is that goal? Because everyone else, it's money and survival. They don't have to do that. They're set.
Yeah, no.
Driving home tiny little things like a potted plant being significant. In one of the first ones we had was like a log fire. And we were like, what do you mean? That's like, no, a log, that's wood. That's wood that's being burnt. There's so, like, that doesn't matter. This is 2020, so like very, very like scarce resources. But wood, things that people would crave, is just being burnt for heat. We have gas. We have all of these other things that you could be burning. But this person, as a show of like wealth and power and opulence, is burning wood. You're like, man, what are you doing? This is insanity. That would cost so much, and you're just burning it.
That's cool.
It drives players to this idea of like, wow, it really is that scarce. Plastic is plentiful, but these things that we take for granted, like wood and water.
Now, what would your players have to do to be able to be let into these corporate zones? Because to keep these corporate zones as beautiful as they are and as safe as they are, they got to keep people like your players out. So if your players are going to be coming in and doing stuff like that, around the campaign, how do you make it so that they have a chance to somehow come into the corporate zone?
I'm always a fan of letting them in and then escorting them out.
I like that.
And there are unwritten. It's the same thing as like the fancy clubs. It's in you come and out you go, because you haven't hit an unspoken or unwritten standard. You've missed whatever the memo, or you've missed the standards, and you don't know what you don't know, and then you find like a mentor character to bring them in, a disillusioned corporate who speaks corporate but then can pass the language and say, oh look, you're dressed in clothes that were like from a year ago, what are you doing? Of course you stick out like a sore thumb. Those sorts of ways. The mentor, especially if they don't have that background as a player character. If they're a rocker boy and a fixer and a net runner, they probably won't have corporate language, not necessarily, but having that kind of corporate mentor is always useful.
I always use the idea of like I work in this area called Hidden Hills all the time in LA, and it's basically where it has like it's a gated community for the rich and famous, basically. The Kardashians used to live there and stuff like that. I think they still do, actually, but I don't. Anyway, my thing is that they needed me there because we do roofing services. We do like roofing demolition and stuff like that. So they need services still. So people that go into corporate zones, there's somebody that has a purpose in the corporate zone. You come in, you do your job, you get out. You don't linger, you don't live here, you don't belong here. You're just here to do the work, we'll pay you, and then you get out of here. I like that idea too.
The other thing that I think helps is if you have a player who's a corpo. If you have a player who's a corpo, the other people there, they just have to pass a decently difficult, but kind of easy persuasion check of no, I've hired these people, they're coming with me.
Yeah.
And as long as you can, and that kind of empowers one of your players to maybe have a little bit of a vein of story to their own. Tailor that session for that player and have everyone join in on their story so that they become part of their narrative, and it keeps your players growing together. That's exciting when they share stories. Oh, do you remember when we did this? Lead your character, lead your player rather into a place where they should be comfortable, but where they have to be a little stealthy about it.
Yeah. I love that.
And it creates a power dynamic within the group that might not have existed up until then, or might have been renounced up until then. Usually your corpo is the person who's I've dropped away from that world. I'm with you guys, your edge runners. I'm with you, and then suddenly I have to be a boss again, kind of. I have to be the one in power, kind of, in the group.
Yeah, totally.
It's great.
I can see that. Taylor, you have anything to add?
No, mine. I kind of go along of none of my players have ever made it in unless they had a purpose to be there, or someone could fake their purpose well enough to be there. And definitely still that kind of like high security escorted out. Like you gotta be real sneaky, real smart, something. Luck of the dice to not have yourself being watched the entire time you are there.
Yeah. And as you guys said before, if one of the players is a corporate and he's bringing these guys in, his reputation's on the line. So if something happens to him that is shady or they don't like it in that corporate zone, it'll reach his corporation somehow, and it'll reach his higher-ups, and then his higher-ups will give him an uncomfortable phone call saying, like, you did what in the Night City corporate zone? And that's something to also keep in mind, too. Yeah, use the players against themselves. I love that.
And storytelling too much Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it is, right? It's just a bunch of backstabbing and treachery. Yeah.
It should be.
As it should be.
Oh man! All right.
In the corporate zones, real quick, don't forget the small people, like the service people, the janitor. They maybe are a way of you getting in. Maybe you meet one in a bar earlier, and they're like, "I can get you in. Just dress like this," and that's your way in.
Yeah.
Think about the services people, but like the ones that no one pays attention to. The roof is fairly conspicuous, but the janitor who's there every single day, less so.
Yeah.
The regular.
Yeah, I like it. We're nearing the end. We can do an honorable mention for the next 5 minutes and do that before we wrap up. Once again, before we wrap up, guys, make sure you guys check out the donation link below in the description and in the chat. Autism home base. They can use your help. They can use your support, so they can play games like Cyberpunk Red, the stuff that we like. I did want to mention before we sign off is combat zones. Combat zones is another place that your players go to. It's definitely one of those places to me that I like. First of all, the books don't really give you any ideas. They give you ideas on what it could be like, but they leave it completely up to you. How you want to run it, how it looks, how it feels, is completely left to you. But the only criteria they tell you is that there is no government support, there's no police, there's nothing there. There's no goods and services the way that you're used to. It's just a blown out, desolated, abandoned cityscape. And that's what a combat zone is. In my games, I've always liked to run them as zones controlled by various gangs that couldn't thrive in the city and just needed a place to go. So the combat zone is open to anybody as long as they can muscle their way into a piece of territory and hold on to it. Then that's their place that they can call home. And maybe there's like established borders that are wishy-washy. You're in territories that are contested and stuff like that. But that's how I like running my combat zones. What about you guys?
Yeah, very, very similar. At least, with my last kind of big campaign, they were kind of set up in the combat zone, but a very similar situation of they knew the people around them, their fixer was their fixer. So, it was all kind of like a little safe zone within it for those that are in it. But then very much, especially when you get more into like the outskirts and further away from the hustle and bustle, it was, I've never been a huge fan of like the stereotypical like random encounter, like, okay, roll every hour crunch. That's not been my thing. But I will throw some sort of altercation every time they're getting in those seedy places to make it feel. And it could just be as easy as there are two gangs fighting across the road that you're driving down. They don't care about you, but you're in their way now. So what's going on here too? This guy's trying to steal your car, at the stoplight kind of situation. And so it's very much if you're in your spot, if you have any sort of spot, that was all nice and chill for them. But that was when I would throw a lot of those. Hey, this world kind of sucks now. And it's not just, it sucks because there's no food and the rich people. I'm sorry, I'll probably hear my folks wrestling. Hey.
No, it's fine. It doesn't hurt your feeling.
Come here. But, the people are dangerous too. Things have changed. And when you're further away from kind of that society that's rebuilding, the scarier and scarier and scarier and scarier it gets until you're out at nothing.
Yeah, I love that. The juxtaposition to the corporate zone and the combat zone. In a corporate zone, the worst thing that will happen if you don't belong is someone might just ask you to leave and then force you to leave. But in the combat zone, if you don't belong, you're fresh meat. You'll be hunted.
They'll just kill you.
Yeah, they'll kill you, take your stuff, and just like the Wastelands, you'll be forgotten. Yeah.
And you can take a lot of things from the Wasteland conversation we had earlier and plump it right into the combat zone and just give it a bit more of a rocker-boy feel to it, I suppose. And it should fly quite nicely.
Yeah, I always approach combat zones with the attitude of it's the Wild West.
Yeah.
In that, like that American style Wild Westy sort of thing, where you see someone go through a bar window. Except in this instance, instead of stepping out and you see, I don't know, it's dust on your shoes, you step out of a cab and there are bullet casings at your feet, enough that it's like detritus. And you see, motorbikes drive past and a couple of shots go wild. That sort of thing. It's that Wild Westy sort of vibe. But with a cyberpunk flair.
The most dangerous cyberpunk flair I could think.
let the city be the forest.
Yeah. That's it. That's pretty much what it is. All the like buildings that are blown out and stuff like that, and the idea that there's like buried treasure. It's a city that's abandoned. You might find an armory,
an old corpo building. I mean,
Yeah, somebody tried to sally
what I
forth
used
and take a couple of buildings. They got pushed back.
Mhm.
Maybe there's some building materials or some corpo info left lying around because they
Or
tried to
there could
reclaim one of the
be,
buildings.
yeah, I even kind of threw in with one of mine. There was a bunch of old abandoned buildings that was just like a strip mall or a warehouse at one point in time that a biotech exec bought up and was using and doing some real shady shit, but with corporate like security. But the guards and everything just looked like gangers. No one thought anything of it.
Mm.
But it's corpos in there. There's big money. You're in trouble if you think you're gonna come just like mess up this place thinking it's just, the iron sights or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
And gang colors on walls and down side alleys always.
Yeah, yeah.
And
All that stuff.
Cyberpunk neon flags that are digital. Do
Yeah.
that thing.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's the style over substance I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I love it.
Especially if a gang's got a really good footing, the more crazy, shitty neon they have that they've second-handed off old buildings and ramshackled together by techs.
Yeah.
Neon is directly proportionate to power.
That's
Yes,
it.
exactly.
Do you even neon, bro?
Nice.
All right, guys.
Love it.
I believe we have reached our end with Cyberpunk settings. Oh, did we lose my mic?
No, we can hear you
Good.
great.
Oh, okay. It was acting weird for a second for me. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you to the audience as well for being a part of this. We really, really appreciate you guys. Big thank you to Autism Home Base for reaching out and wanting us to be a part of it. I really, really appreciate it. I'm more than happy to do this. I'm happy to be able to sit down and talk to you guys. I really greatly respect everything you guys do. And I wish you nothing but success and happiness throughout your endeavors. So before we sign off, let's just go around and make sure we plug our stuff again. Binary Dragon, please.
You can find me on Twitter, Binary Dragon. I'm on Twitch as Binary_Dragon, just to confuse you. And you can check out everything about the podcast I make set in the Cyberpunk Red universe at NoLatencyPodcast.com.
And Chris?
You can find me on Bonding Chris on Twitter. I'm part of Babybeard Media. You can find us on YouTube, and we make a role-playing game podcast, an actual play podcast called Roll to Cast, ROLE to cast.
And Taylor?
And then I run the Con Save. We are on Twitch, we're on YouTube. Cyberpunk being our big thing, but lots of other fun tabletop content. Same on High Shelf Gaming, where I basically split my time. Also, Cyberpunk and other fun tabletop stuff and video games. We do it all. We have fun.
Video games are dope.
Video games
So
are dope.
So good.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week, month, or even your year. We'll see you guys on the next one. Make sure you guys support these wonderful creators. Donate to Autism Home Base. And we'll see you guys on the next one. All right? Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.